Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a very special art drop with Michael Oeming this afternoon or this morning, depending on what coast you're on, or evening if you're viewing the show today in Europe or any other place far to our east. So wanted to give you a general overview of how the claim sale today is going to go. Today, the show is, of course, presented by TalentTalk Live and Comic Art Live, as was our last show that we did with Joe Linsner. It's a pleasure to do these shows with creators and also with Talent Talk Live. They've been a supporter of things that we've done in the past with the Comic Art Live conventions that we host on Comic Art Fans. And I've been a partner with them for quite some time and known many of their principals for a long time. And it's been a very good relationship for me. But today we're going to be doing a art drop, like I mentioned, with Michael Avon Oeming. And so the ground rules generally are going to be that well, let's just get a couple things out of the way first. If you're watching on Facebook, I would definitely encourage you to watch us on YouTube. If you go over to the YouTube site and go type in Comic Art Live, you'll find the channel there. YouTube tends to be a faster platform and shows our show closer to real time than Facebook does. It's just a better platform that way, and I would encourage everybody to do that. So unlike our Dueling Dealer show and other shows where we have claims going on in the chat, claims will actually be done via email, just like the last time we had a show with Joe, or any other time that I've done an art drop with a rep and an artist at the same time. So as you can see on the screen right now, to purchase art today that you see when we get to the sale portion of the show, you're going to email contact@talenttalklive.com and let them know which artwork you wish to purchase. Every artwork that we show will have a lot number. So when you send the email in, we'd like the subject to say Oeming Art Sale, and in the body of the email, let us know what lot number you're wishing to purchase, and also include your name as well. And what will happen is when if there's only one person sending an email in, they'll definitely get it. And if multiple people are sending their a claim in for the same artwork, the first email that Talent Talk receives will be the person that gets to purchase that artwork. Talent Talk will reply immediately to the first email that they receive, letting you know that you claimed it. So if you've sent in a claim email and you did not get a reply, and I've stated that the art is sold as part of the show, then you know that you did not get it, and we'll move on to the next artwork. So just keep that in mind as we move through things. Again, it's a little different than when we do a claim sale show with everything happening in the chat. But I feel like this works a little bit cleaner. It keeps our chat very free of lots of side conversations and things. We're very just focused on what we're talking about and the artwork that we're looking at. And also, please note that the prices for the artwork do not include shipping and handling, and you can combine purchases as well. So if into one shipping price, and as you can see on there, USA shipping is $20 via USPS Priority Mail, and international will be $55 via USPS Priority International. So so keep that in mind as well when we're showing the prices. They do not include shipping, and as you should expect. So let me also go over a few other pieces of note today. Is just that when we were doing the claim sale, well, here, let's just talk about how to purchase too. Talent Talk does offer through Stripe pretty much payment options in any payment credit card type of situation. About the only thing that they don't offer is payment via crypto. So keep that in mind. And if you are watching the show after it's over, because I know a lot of people do watch these things after we've had the live event, you still have 24 hours to purchase artwork that wasn't claimed. So if you're watching later and you see something that you would like to buy and you know that it wasn't claimed live, you're more than welcome to email contact@TalentTalk Live and let them know that you'd like to claim an artwork, and they'll let you know whether or not it was still available or not. But it's only available until 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday for that as an option. So just bear in mind that it's not forever, because this video will last forever on our social channels that we presented on, but the opportunity to buy the artwork is limited to the live show and then 24 hours after that. So with that all in mind, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned in this afternoon. I see lots of familiar faces, Gabe and Nick and Sean. Thank you so much, and James Siegel. Yep, nice to see you as well. So let's bring in the man of the hour, Mr. Mike Oeming. How are you doing this morning for you and this afternoon for me?
Hey, Bill, it's great to hear from you, man. nice and early in the day. Well, not that early, but let's put this. I get up early, but I'm a very slow riser, so it takes me hours to really wake up. But I'm here now.
Well,
Mentally.
I mean, well, I'm glad you were able to do it. I mean, we talked about this almost a month ago, and so I've been anxiously waiting to kind of get this thing rolling, get the chance to talk to you a little bit about what you've been doing since COVID, kind of dampened everybody's spirits, made us not be able to go to cons. Artists had to put their pencils down. So I've been looking forward to this as well. But before we get started, I mean, Halloween's tomorrow. Is it a big holiday for you? Do you guys do anything special?
We might go over to Bendis's. It's got like 4 kids. It's like a Halloween group right there. But generally, it's just Taki and I. It's pretty quiet. It's one of those neighborhoods where you can never tell. Like, you buy like a bag of candy, it's never enough. Next year, you need to go out and get 6 more, and then the next year is. So, with the pandemic stuff, I guess it was a good chance to take a break.
Very true. Well, that's I didn't realize Bendis was that close. I mean, to you, was that one of the reasons you moved to that part of the country?
It's a big factor. So I spent most of my life in Jersey. I was born in Texas, and I've spent different parts of my childhood in around the Fort Worth area, but mostly a Jersey boy. And then when we moved out to the Northwest, it was to work at that video game company, Valve, who does like Half-Life and Left 4 Dead and Portal and a bunch of other stuff. And that was a great experience. And then when I was done, I was considering moving back to the East Coast, but Brian was out here, and so was a bunch of other comic book community and stuff, and Dark Horse, who I was working with, and it was really good to be able to go into an office, which rarely happens when you're working in comics, to like talk to your editors and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And my son loved it. My son, was his late teens at that point. I was like, look, I can come back now. After, because we had divorced and was living bi-coastal lives, and he would come out in the summer and he loved it and stuff, and he was liking the trips and stuff, and he was getting to that age where all right, your input now matters, so what do you think? And he was like, yeah, just stay out there, and like so the combination of all those things, we ended up staying out here, and I love the Northwest. I'm still a Jersey boy on the inside. I still yell at traffic and have a foul mouth, but I've chilled a lot, which is one of the great things about the Northwest. It's very chill.
Well, I get you on that one. It's I've only been to that area of the country maybe twice. I've never been out there for any shows or anything, but I do really appreciate it, and I'm jealous. I mean, you worked for Valve. Left 4 Dead, one of my favorite co-op games of all time. I probably had some of my most fun experiences online playing Left 4 Dead.
Fantastic game. Like Taki and I are not big gamers. Every now and then there's a game that like grabs us. And I remember when we went in to talk to him about a job thing and played Left 4 Dead, and it was one of those, like, it's so nerdy and stupid to say, but like I remember, it's like one of those moments. I remember where I was, what the room was like. It was such a fresh experience playing that game that it left like a synesthesia impression on me. Like I can feel the room and everything. It was a fantastic game and a great working environment. Like that's where I started to learn how to work digitally. And now that I'm approaching middle age, like these are my drawing glasses. Hold on. Like they're like straight up, Wow. So thank God I learned to draw digitally. And I still like drawing analog. But there are times where it's just too hard and it's just, so thank God, I learned working digitally. It was a great working experience there. And kind of getting together with Bendis, not to gloss over it, but like that was a big deal too. It's like, not only are Brian and his family and Taki and I are like an extended family, but to be able to be that close to the people that you're working with creatively, it's really special. Because as you know, most of comics is spread out. There's these little cities that have a scene and that kind of thing. But for the most part, we're all sort of spread out. And so it's like a convention all the time. Nick Darrington lives close by, so we'll go hiking and stuff. There's a lot of the comics community here. I wish I was just able to see more. Pandemic aside, the way we all work is just kind of insane. Brian Chiarella's another local, I believe. There's a couple other cats right here, and we've been trying to get together for years, literally years. And I would be like, well, my schedule is screwed for like 2 weeks. Maybe next month. All right. Next month comes along, and then the other guy is like screwed, right? And it's like, So it's interesting. There's so many people around here and so few that I get to see. It's a little heartbreaking,
Sure.
But now we're used to it.
Yeah, well, being self-employed, I mean, you gotta jump and stay focused when the work is there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I mean, I've been self-employed for probably 22, 23 years. So when the work's there, even though you're at home, you kind of shut
Yeah.
the door and stay focused. So I totally get that. But yeah, again, but I am very envious of the whole Valve experience. They've been a big part of my life ever since the first Half-Life came out. And
Ah,
as a gamer, they just were very influential in the things that I did, and leading up to doing web development and whatnot. So when I knew that about you, just thought that was really cool. So I wanted
oh
to tell you
man.
that.
Well, let me tell you, make your experience even better. Gabe Newell, who owns the company,
Yeah,
is just a great human being. And like, look, I haven't talked to Gabe in like 10 years or something like that. I don't work for Valve anymore. I'm not going back to work for Valve. I'm only saying this because it's true. Like, he's a good dude. I've seen him like with his kids, and like, at the video game place at Valve is like every cliche movie you see, where there's like this huge cafeteria and there's like games and fun shit to do to keep your mind going and to relieve some of the pressure. And it's like his kids are running around and like, oh dad, can I have some candy? And he's like, oh, you can have anything you want, but you have to help the person who stocks all that stuff first. So like,
sure.
like he's just a good all around person, and everybody else that I worked there was very open and inviting, and the way they thought there was exactly like you would think, to the point that it poisons other games for me. Like I'll watch another game and I'm like, what was the thought behind this? Like I
Right.
love Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Taki and I are playing the crap out of that because I'm a big nerd for history and stuff. So like I just like walking around, and she loves killing things. But often during those cutscenes, you're like, why is this cutscene here? Like, why are you walking for 20 minutes? Like, now that I've been exposed to like how people really think in this high level way of video games, whenever I play a game, like everything is a question to me now. It's like, why did you make that choice? And Valve was that place. It was just this golden place of like good choices and stuff. And yeah, I loved it. It was a great experience.
Well, I mean, congratulations on that. That's really, really cool. But why don't you let's talk a little bit about what's been going on since COVID. I mean, I imagine many things in your life and work has had to change because of that. And how has COVID affected your work schedule and project releases and that sort of thing? What's it been like for you?
Man, Bill. So I've been in comics professionally for like 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this. This past year and a half is the most insane. So the common story you hear in comics is you're always being told comics are dying, right? This was a story that I was told when I first started breaking in, or not even breaking in, just when I was getting interested in comics. Like I got that
Hmm.
speech about how comics used to sell hundreds of thousands of copies and stuff, and this is when they were selling like 50,000 copies was an average selling thing, right?
Sure.
So they're like comics are dying. Then later on, as you're going through bumps and changes in the industry, you always hear comics are dying. Movies come out, comics sales don't go up in the early 90s and stuff. Comics are dying. You got the speculator market, and then the crash, and comics are dying, right? So I've heard this for so
Exactly.
long. The beginning of this pandemic was the first time I really believed it, because before the pandemic, we have all these issues about like distribution and just the simple problem of getting comics into people's hands who don't know how, right? Who
Mhm.
aren't on the inside. Um, like that was already this huge problem, and there was issues with some distribution stuff. There's issues with pricing and who gets paid what, and all of this stuff, right? Floppies, like everybody seemed to like floppies have a home, but it definitely seemed like there was this big shift to like, let's start going more towards miniseries and graphic novels, digital first and stuff, because there's
Right.
still, floppies are hard, like graphic novels you can sell anywhere. They can go on to Barnes and Noble and Amazon and all that stuff, but floppies you can only get through a comic book store. So it's just, what's going to happen with that, right? So everything felt like a three-legged table. And then when the pandemic started, first you had, I don't remember what happened first. Was it like pencils down with a bunch of companies, or was it the distributorship first? Um,
I mean, it was pretty close. I feel like
you know,
uh, I think it was pencils down first, and then that effect, because then the distributors probably had some things that they could still be shipping, and then that was cut off. But I think the artist had pencils down first. I
yeah.
could be
So
wrong.
like all these things were out of control of everybody, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody at all. This is stuff it was just so out of control of everybody. So for a minute there, like I started thinking, yeah, this is it. Like, and I didn't think it was it as the fact like comics are dead. Like I just saw like a sort of meteor hitting us, right? And we'll
Hmm.
recover, and it'll be something different in time. But I figured for years, like I might have to call Valve back up or another video game or find some other way of making money. Powers had just finished. So, that work train that I constantly had with Brian, between Powers and Murder Inc. We had finished those stories, and Brian was making that transition between DC and Dark Horse. We couldn't say anything, and those deals take a long time and stuff. So during the pandemic, the work that I could guarantee myself is Brian and I just creating something for ourselves, right? That opportunity wasn't there. We weren't sure when that was going to turn around. The pandemic stuff, everything was closing down. Like, it was, I mean, I really thought that this could be it. And that's when I leaned heavy into like my last two. Actually, the beginning of my first Kickstarters was at the beginning of the pandemic. So I started looking into that, where we were talking about doing Patreon comics. There was nothing that was going to stop us from making comics. We were just really afraid that for a time period anyway, things were going to be hard. And really they were, but they recovered like the will behind comics to make comics happen, from the level of distributors, from the level of retailers to art collectors and comic creators and readers, is so strong. We came up with all these solutions. Some were like really awkward, like distribution wise, and they weren't really working. People weren't happy, but books were getting out. And then these other shifts happened, and weirdly, so a year and a half later, it feels like the comic industry is stronger than it ever was. Like we had that little meteor thing where things kind of got wiped out, but it wasn't that big. It was just enough to scare everybody straight and go, all right, wait. Let's not let this go apart.
Sure.
Let's not let this go away. And it's crazy. It's crazy how strong things are now. So that's kind of I was in a panic mode. I tripled up on work, which is biting me in the ass a little bit right now, because typically I work on a lot of projects, but I can stack them in sort of different ways where they don't actually have the same deadlines on the same week. But like right now, it's Krypton and World of Krypton for DC, and Blue Book with James right now have deadlines just overlapping each other. And I haven't even started my next thing with Brian right yet, which is on the horizon. Taki and I have a graphic novel, other works that I created in order to keep employed while I thought everything was going to go away. I still have to do my last issue of After Realm. Not really the last issue, but the last issue of this arc. So just a lot of work. Luckily, I'm somebody who enjoys work. I like working 7 days a week. I take off when I feel like it. It is the way I deal with all of my neurosis and my self-doubt and all that. Like my self-worth is in the work, so luckily those things all line up in a good way. I'm a workaholic and I enjoy it. So that helps.
Well, that's good. I mean, I had the same fears when everything started happening too with the pandemic. I'm thinking, what's going to happen in the comic art market? Dealers can't go to shows, reps can't get to shows, artists' pencils are down, right? How are they going to make a living when they can't, produce any new artwork that can be sold?
Your field is really interesting too. As an art collector, like a couple of years ago, I was hearing about how the original art market was going down, that people weren't buying. And some of it, I think, was rhetoric amongst artists, especially digital artists. Like, I like to work both analog and digitally. It's mostly just about schedule for me, in my eyes, right? So there was this fear that like people weren't interested in original art anymore. But then, so I don't even know if that was true, or if that was just sort of the rumor mill amongst comic book artists. But now it definitely.
I would say it wasn't true. By and large, certainly anybody who was switching to digital had that period where they didn't really have any opportunity to make any money after doing the work, because the concept of monoprints really was pretty new. So I think that for people who were making that transition, there might have been a little bit of regret. I'm losing out on the original art sale side of the business, but I'd say by and large, no, the market's always really been very strong. But my fear going into it was just issues with artists not being able to produce any work, not being able to get out in front of people at cons to take convention sketches and commissions. And it turned, like you just said, I mean, it was a big negative, but it became a great positive. We did the first comic art live show, but the thing is, I think I could have almost done nothing, and it still would have been, we still would have seen an uptick in sales and things, because I think people are finally kind of turning on, they're tuning into the importance of original comic art as not only a collectible, but as a piece of art that people want to own. And it really, and maybe the time that we all spent sitting at home in front of our computers when we couldn't go to work and we couldn't go to shows, gave people the opportunity to really, because traffic on comic art fans increased dramatically in the first 5 months after the pandemic started, because people just had more time to spend on the site. And I do think it brought in a lot of new viewers and new people who were interested in collecting. And we started doing these live streams at the same time. And I think that it reached a different base. And I mean, if you've been following the news with the heritage auctions and the Comic Link auctions, I mean, there's record prices going, happening at every major event auction that is happening today. And it's been very surprising. So all the fears that I had and the fears that a lot of the reps and the dealers had that we all shared early on back in May 2020, it just was unfounded. Right at the end of the day, it didn't come to fruition. So, which is a good thing. I mean, I think it just shows that, like you said, comics, we kind of found our way. The meteor hit, we all got shook up a little bit, but everybody got creative again. And I think that it's events like these that force us to kind of look outside of what we're used to doing, and then coming up with a better way to do them.
Yeah, there's a lot of upsides to everything that's happened in the last year and a half. And if we can carry those lessons in a good way, both for comics and elsewhere, we'll be a better society for it.
Exactly. So before we get to the art sale, I mean, you wanted to, I know you said you had something you could show us as far as a current project that you're working on right now.
Yeah, I thought this would be fun to show, especially being on an art thing, and we're talking about digital art and analog art. And I'm sure you'll have this conversation tons of time with different artists about, where they literally draw that line, and what they're working on. So this latest thing that I'm working on for Donny Cates' crossover series, Brian and I are doing a Power story, and Walker and Dean have already appeared in the crossover series, which was something we were excited to do, because if you remember at the very beginning of Powers, we did a lot of crossover and guest appearance of other creators, characters, both peers and idols. So it felt, especially after doing the 20 years of Powers, best ever graphic novel, where we kind of wrap things up, to sort of repeat that on the other end of that, of the other end of that spectrum. So it's really cool. And I wanted to draw it all analog, because it's only 6 pages. I told Brian with and Downey with my schedule right now, you can't have crowd scenes of people fighting and stuff. Let's keep it simple noir. So I wanted to draw it analog. Spoilers, I'm not. I only drew 1 page analog. I would share some of the process with you. So what I typically do for a page is, it's just in my sketchbook here, I will pencil things out lightly in pencil, and then go over it with this ballpoint pen, and just define all of the shapes. So I do this for every page, and you'll see these blank areas. So some of these panels are panels that I'll repeat, and then I'm going to change stuff digitally once it's repeated, or backgrounds that I haven't drawn yet. I'll either draw them digitally, or I'm using 3D models that I'm going to work off of, usually Google SketchUp. But this is just, there's something about, even with my eyesight problems, just drawing analog, I hit different lines, different sorts of little accents and stuff. Little accents will happen with a pen that can't happen digitally. So even though it's a little bit of an extra step, I love doing this. So I'm still laying out the whole story this way. But then here's my finished. Where did I put it? Sorry about that. So here's the analog, the inked page. This is the first page of our Power story with crossover. And as you can see, all the black here is left open. So what I'll do is I'll finish that digitally. I'll scan this in and then drop in all that black, because to fill in this black, which I do later when I don't have deadlines, this will take me about a quarter of the time it took to ink the rest of the page. So all that black, it's just a time suck. You could just, it's nice to have a lifestyle where I could fill in the blacks of everything, but I don't have the time. I got to keep moving and stuff. So this is the one analog page that'll exist from this new Power story, and then the rest I finish digitally. In fact, it's so much faster to work digitally. I'm probably, for consistency's sake, I'll probably re-ink that page, the analog page, so that the lines are completely consistent with the rest of the book.
Okay, because I was just going to ask that question. I mean, how do you? Because I know the differences between digital and traditional can be very striking. Digital is never going to be able to mirror exactly what a brushstroke would look like. So okay, so that makes sense. So you take that the traditional piece and then go back and scan it in and then touch it up a little bit just so it looks the same.
Yeah, and weirdly, like even for me, like when I look at a page that's digital versus analog, um, the differences are still subtle, you know, because remember you're shrinking, like even though you can't have that same line control if you're working at 11 by 17, and once you shrink that down, the line quality isn't hugely different, I don't think, for your average enjoyer of comics. But like somebody like you or any of your art collectors, or even just an average person who does pay attention, they could probably see the difference, but it's not too striking. Also, I try to do stuff like when I'm working, there are different moods for different things. So like Dick Tracy, it was all digital and it was meant to have this very fine kind of line to it. When I'm doing Project Blue Book, it's done analog. And then the few pages I have done digitally, I try to imitate the analog line. So sometimes I'll import like a drawn page, an analog drawn page, and just try and copy that line width and texture with whatever digital tool that I'm using, so that it matches as closely as possible.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's some of the process, and I think it's exciting to get to do some Walker Venus stuff again with Powers, and be in a fresh book like crossover with Donnie and the next generations of people, and you know, it's fun.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, that's got to be totally cool. I mean, you know, for something that you've been working on for so long, to see it still have a life and a relevance to readers and to writers who've come in since you've been working. I mean, that's, I don't know, that's got to be pretty gratifying, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, shall we talk about some of the art for sale? We can show, you know, we can show some of the art, and what we could do is, you know, with each piece that we bring up, we could talk a little bit about it. And again, so before we get started, just so everybody knows, there'll be 20 pieces of art that we're going to show today, and each art is numbered 1 through 20. So it's lots 1 through 20. So will be, I'll just pull that slide up again so everybody can have it ready in their email, and pull this up here so you can see you'll be emailing contact@TalentTalk Live and let them know the lot number and your name when you for the artwork that you want to purchase, and put Oeming Art Sale in the subject, just to make things nice and clean for Matthias. And Matthias is our person who will be replying to anybody who's picking up the artwork today, just like with our first show. And so that's the process. If I don't see anybody asking really any questions about that, because you've probably been here before or done it, or you've done something similar with us in the past. So just kind of keep that in mind. But we'll just kind of go through these, Mike, and again, we'll talk a little bit about each piece, and you can tell me you know, what was going on with it and why things are like they are in them. And all right, so we're going to get lot number 1 on the screen here. And this first one is it's a 9 by 14 Aquaman, Superman, Green Lantern sketch. So I've seen you do these before. Is this just something you do for fun, and you like putting 3 characters on the screen, or you know, for the page? I was curious about that.
Yeah, one of the reasons why, like, there's a certain size that I like drawing characters at, and sometimes when I'm doing a pinup, like even on a 9 by 14, like the body is larger than I'm happy with. So what I discovered with convention sketches like a long time ago was, you know what, I'm better off drawing like a couple of squares and doing like close-up face here and another body here, just size-wise, so it works out better. And then this particular piece, so that's one of the reasons I do that. This particular piece was, I was just trying to follow the example of some amazing artists I admire, like Scotty Young and Chris Samney, who are doing like these amazing daily sketches, which are really, I think, full-blown drawings. They're just beautiful, right? So I was trying to do that for a little bit. So there's a handful of these, most of which were sold, but I have a handful of these left, these sort of daily warm-up pieces. And it's fun playing with characters I don't get to draw, like Aquaman and Green Lantern. Or I haven't drawn yet. I've gotten to draw and write Superman, which is a lot of fun.
Sure. So you do these normally just as a warm up before you get started, and you know, with the regular work.
Yeah, in fact, I think this I probably did over the breakfast table, or I penciled it over the breakfast table, and then, you know, once breakfast is done, I'm come upstairs ready to work. That's when I probably finished the rest of it. There's like a little bit of wash tones on there as well, and there's, you know, one of the things that I love about these things is because they're warm-ups, there's no sort of pretension to it. You know, it's just an attempt to just grab an image, for me anyway, and see if I can grab something about the character that makes them special. I don't know how successful I was with this, but you know, that's what I like the sketch stuff is. It's just quick and out of the head. I admire, like, Samney's sketches always seem to have like a concept behind them. I'm like, how do you have time to sit there and think about this first? But he's probably
I
just
know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, like he has like high concept sketches. I'm like, dude, standing there, like, look at my abs. That's about as thoughtful as I can get sometimes.
Oh, well, very cool. So we didn't get any claim emails as far as I know, but I would let everybody know that after we do the first 20 and show them off, that if any pieces haven't sold, I will show them again. The price is still the price that's on it. This isn't like Dueling Dealers where we haggle at the end
Sure,
of the
yeah,
show
yeah.
or whatnot. But anything that hasn't sold, we'll just review them once the show is over, and
Sure.
to give everybody an extra opportunity to remind themselves, because a lot of people like to see everything that's here before they do any claims.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see. We're going to move on to lot number 2. This is from the Blue Book Project. Yeah.
Yeah. So Project Blue Book, for those of you who don't know, is government's look into UFOs back in like the 50s. And it was made famous by a television show, several books, and there's a television series right now called Blue Book, which is not part of, or Project Blue Book, I think that one's called. And the guy behind Project Blue Book, who the government hired to debunk UFOs, was J. Allen Hynek, who was this astrophysicist, and that's where you hear the joke explanation of UFOs being swamp gas. That was one of his explanations for one of these sightings, and it was his job to debunk UFOs. And but it turned out after studying them and debunking them long enough, he became a believer, and he actually became a very big proponent for government disclosure on UFOs and such. And James Tinian and I, James has this book called Department of Truth. He's been writing Batman for a long time, and a bunch of other horror and weird stuff. And we both have a love for this kind of weird, fringy stuff. And when he got his deal with Substack, the first thing he wanted to do was something like Blue Book, which for me was this weird bucket list, because it's not the kind of thing that would really work well in the direct market. So there was no reason that I could ever see being able to do it. So it was this really neat dream come true that James wanted to do that. So this was the very first piece that I did for Project Blue Book to test out what the feel of it would be. I wanted it to be very Alex Tothy, very black heavy. I wanted it to be analog, even if it took a little bit longer, just because the brush and line work stuff will pick up a certain mood, a certain retro mood that I just can't get the digital stuff to do. So it just set a really good mood to want to draw it all this way, and to really, really, really lean into my heavy Alex Toth influences.
Sure.
Yeah, so this is all like pen and ink. I'm typically using Kirituke brush pen and a micro what are they called? No, Bimoji brush pen. These are like Japanese brush pens that are made for manga and other art and stuff. And I love those tools. I can ink everything with just those 2 pens.
Well, you had to use a lot of ink on that one.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that where you were just telling us how you didn't have time to fill in all the blacks, but on this one, yeah, that was a lot of work, because that's an 11x17 board as well.
Yeah, again, this is one of the reasons digital, like, with a click of the button, that's done. I can come back later and finish this stuff up. And then the strip now is running. It basically runs every 2 weeks, 20 pages a month. And we've also come up with these little sort of 1-page Ripley, believe it or not, kind of like projects that we're putting out for little freebies in between. So, and you can read that over at James Tinian's Substack, or you go to readbluebook.com. It's kind of an easy way to see it.
Readbluebook.com. I'm making a note of that too, because I saw the Toth influence in this next piece, and I was going to ask you about that. But so that's pretty cool. And I should let everybody know that lot number 1 has sold. I did get pinged that one has gone to a home here. So let's look at the third piece, because this is the one that I was thinking, had the Toth influence. I saw that, and I just love the blacks, and it just made me think of that when I saw this. So this is another piece from the Blue Book project, and it's on an 11x17 board.
Yeah, this was probably the second piece that I did. It was actually an attempt to do a cover. And for the actual cover piece, we went for something that was more straightforward, where this car was coming at you. But the cover started with James talking about, like, we would we communicate a lot about what we want to accomplish in the book. And for this piece, like he wanted to capture the sense of space between this little car, which should feel almost like it's being, well, the UFO and the mountains should feel like an oppressive predator, you know, and then the car should feel like a little bunny rabbit kind of getting away from everything. Like it's surrounded by the landscape that dwarfs them. The landscape even dwarfs the UFO and the space above it. And then you've got the UFO, which the final piece is like the whole thing has a blue tone over it, minus this white light beam that goes from the UFO down to the car. And this takes place in Massachusetts. These are specific mountain range because these are all stories that were based on true stories. And this is the first modern UFO abduction story of Betty and Barney Hill, which we get pretty much all the iconology of UFO abductions from. And then in this piece was just a lot of fun because I knew the two sources I was really drawing on was Alex Toth. Obviously, that's sort of my bellwether for all of this. And I had a nice little writing. I was lucky enough to write back and forth with Alex. We can talk a little bit about that at some point if you want.
Sure.
So I'm always conscious to like learn his lessons, but not to quite copy him, you know, because I just know he wasn't a fan of that. And like, I want to honor my influence of him and not copy it too much. And then the other big influence was Jeff Smith's Bone. When I read Jeff Smith's Bone, I don't see many people doing better black and white trees and forests than he does. The only other person would be Mignola, of course, is another huge influence on me. But when I draw Mignola trees, I just want to draw Mignola trees.
I just want you to know too that lot number 3 has sold. So everybody who's watching, just you don't need to send another email. That one has been picked up as well. And I love this piece. And you know what? One thing we could talk about before we move, you know, not too long because people want to look at the art to buy. But I know that you're a fan of history, and so I thought it was interesting because you know, you read a lot of the interviews with you and things I already knew about you. You know, there's a lot that goes further back into mythology and those sorts of things. And I know that, but looking at something that's more current, something that maybe was 60 years ago. I mean, yeah. I would have thought that, you know, you're going to stick over in the more ancient mythology and histories and that sort of thing. So was it a big leap for you to like move up to something that modern, or was it just that you hadn't had the opportunity to explore more modern themes of mythology like UFOs? I
mean, more, you know, it's more just I haven't had the opportunity because even this, like I won't go on too long about it, but you know, my feelings about UFOs and all that stuff isn't that I'm a believer. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, and not to put it down in any way, but I do look at it as part of like a modern mythology. You know, that a lot of the events that happen in these UFO things are things that people have gone through thousands of years. They were just stories of fairies and otherworldly beings and stuff, and it was just as enigmatic and weird, and people just swore just as much that this happened to them and stuff. So in a weird way, while it's modern day, it does feel
it's got a tie right to the past as well. Yeah, I get
it. The most fun though is just some of the references of like finding the right outfits. Drawing Betty and Barney Hill is fun because they're of the generation of that my parents were. So like there are things I can see in them that I saw in my own parents, and I try to bring them alive and be as respectful to their memories as possible of like the pain that they went through this stuff and to really show their emotions. So that's more of this kind of storytelling that I'm interested in these days too.
Sure. Oh, that's good. The one thing I will note, because we didn't really get to talk about your career as much, is I love the fact that you've got these creator-owned projects and these smaller projects that I don't know. I admire the path that you've taken as a comic artist because I you know, as an entrepreneur and somebody who really does their own thing, I feel that's a really important part of my creativity and the lifestyle that I've taken. And I feel like you've really done that pretty much your whole career. And I think that's really unique. And, you know, in a world today where everybody wants to have their own creator-owned projects. I mean, you did, you know, Bulletproof Monk. You've done things that a lot of people just wish they could have done. So, and you've been in the industry long enough so that you've done it more than once. You've done it many times. So I really admire that.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
No, not a problem. So let's bring up Lot 4 and talk a bit about that. This is the cover to Cave Carson #1.
This means a lot to me on a lot of different levels. First, Cave Carson is the first ongoing thing for Marvel or DC that I drew ever. not counting Judge Dredd, which I was 19 or 20. I think I drew about 5 issues before I kind of crapped the bed and I really wasn't ready for the job. A great learning experience and everything. Paul Kupferberg was my editor. He was a great guide through all of that stuff. And but this was the first thing for Marvel DC that I was actually asked to an ongoing book, you know, which always drove me nuts because I am a deadline assassinator, you know, like I take my deadlines like freaking seriously. Like, so I was really excited to finally get like a monthly thing. A lot of crazy stuff happened in my life while I was drawing Cape Carson. I lost my parents during this time period. Issue 5 or 6, which has Superman in it. I drew next to my uncle's deathbed. I didn't know at the time. He was dying of cancer, you know, but I thought he was going to bounce back. So I was still drawing like right next to him and stuff. Like I just didn't expect that to happen. So like I'm drawing. So this book just meant so much to me in my life. This cover specifically, that's actually even my face on there. Like I took a picture of my face. I took anatomy photos or pictures of, you know, nerve endings and stuff. The section of face that's missing in there was actually my face, and you can kind of see it on the original art because I took the photo and then printed out on non-repro blue and then inked over it. So I think underneath you can still kind of see the photocopy of my face is still in there. And then, you know, working with Gerard Way was bizarre because I just didn't see that coming, and it was a great experience. And I became really, really tight friends with really tight friends. I can't remember Jonathan Rivera's name. But we became really good friends over this, you know. It's a friendship that I'm always going to cherish. And then Nick Filardi and I have been working together forever, and to be able to have him on the book was a great blessing. And it was just one of the best working experiences of my life. And it opened me up as an artist. This is where I took my expressive layouts to a whole different level and started thinking about them differently. Mm-hmm. It's also where I transitioned. I drew most of that analog with a lot of backgrounds that I finished and details that I finished in digitally. And I think it's probably the very last book that I'll be able to do fully analog, other than maybe if I can find more stuff like Blue Book where there's not, you know, crowds of people running around shooting each other and things exploding in cars and shit like that. But it's probably like my last mainstream thing I'll get to do analog.
Well, I mean, first off, I should let everybody know that lot did sell. So congratulations to whomever picked that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm glad it's going to a good home.
Yeah. I mean, so how do you feel about that, though? I mean, regrets that that's the last kind of book that you're going to be able to do fully analog?
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, I might be able to do more, but like some of the problems are the practical problems. Like I said, when I finished that page for Powers for crossover, it did go by very quickly, just as quickly as I thought it was. But I still knew if I did the exact same thing but did it digitally, I could do it in like a quarter of the time. You know, I don't have to worry about smearing the ink. I don't have to redip a brush. I don't have to change a pen.
Sure.
You know, and there, you know, and I'm so ambivalent because there are lines that I can get, and I'm not just talking about thin lines. There are specific kind of lines and shapes that I can get digitally that I can't get analog. And I'm not talking, again, I don't mean the quality or how difficult it is to perform it. It's just that there's a specific thing you get from that line, and the same thing with analog. So it's not too sad for me, other than not having more physical art. But I've got tons of physical stuff. I just typically don't split it, which is why I'm happy to be here.
I get it. I mean, and I'm glad you're here too, because this I knew this was going to be fun. But let's take a look at another cover here from Cape Carson. This is the cover to issue 5.
Yeah, this was so fun. This was one of the most fun I've ever had on a cover. First, you've got this crazy character, Wild Dog, who, like, honestly, I never really read in a comic. I only knew him through the ads of comics I was reading in the 80s. And it was such a great image. It just always stuck with me. And the fact that we got to use this character at all was fun. And then the way he contrasted with Cave and his daughter was so great. Like Jonathan and Gerard wrote him, you know, kind of to the right of things, so to speak. And, you know, where obviously Cave, being like a teacher and a scientist, is a little more to the left of things and stuff. And to watch their characters interact, this gun-loving, violence forward kind of character, which is kind of crazy next to like a scientist and his daughter tripping on mushrooms as they explore the inner Earth. It was just right up my alley. It
I mean,
was so fun.
that's a lot of work in that background.
Yeah, so that background is partially like I took it from like a pattern that I have and then just expounded on it. And I knew I could do this effect digitally, but at the time I also knew I just wanted to draw. I just wanted to draw it, you know. And yeah, it came out great. I'm really happy with it. Wild Dog is really hard to draw, surprisingly. Like, because his shirt icon is so simple. It's almost like that Bart Simpson thing. If you draw it slightly wrong, it won't look like it. And the same thing with his mask pattern. It's very specific, and if you don't get it right, it just looks like these holes spread throughout in a haphazard way. But it's a pattern that's on his face, and it's just really hard to come across. And then again, this was all pen and that brush. So it's mostly the Bimoji marker pen, a ballpoint pen, and these Karatoki brush pens that I use. And it's still one of my favorite covers.
Well, unfortunately, it has sold. So you'll be sending that on to a new home. But it is, I mean, it's amazing. I really, I thought it was really cool. And the thing is, I know that there's a couple pieces later on where you can look at the published piece and the analog piece, and you can see where maybe there was some digital work that you did because it wasn't in the analog piece. One of the covers with the bricks, for instance, I know we'll talk about. So I thought that was neat that you actually took the time to put all that effort into it to get that background like that, because you could have done it in a different way, and you
it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge with digital. You can always add more, and it's super easy. That's one of the reasons why I like to still try to work analog. Like, one of the things I'm known for is like my negative use of space. And that's gone dramatically down when I started working digitally, because it's just easy to draw more or to drop something in there. So there's a value in original art it's honest for me. It's not this part. Like, it's great to sell it. Like, I'm glad it gets good homes and it does well for me and stuff. But it's really about the making of the work, you know. So I'm glad that it has a home afterwards, that somebody who appreciates it. I don't think too much about the stuff after it's done. It's all about the process and the journey for me. But I'm glad these are getting good homes.
Well, they definitely are. So why don't we'll look at another piece here. This is going to be lot number 6. Another Cave Carson cover, yeah.
This would be really fun for somebody just to see the sort of differences. Obviously, the effect that we want to go here was there's this broken mirror or broken dimension or a broken window, and there's different ways I could have gone through it. Like the way I showed you my sketchbook earlier, I could have taken that sketchbook drawing, the underpin drawing, and then broken it up into this mirror piece, and then to try to draw afterwards, imitate that look. Here I just went straight forward to just drawing the piece as it would be straightforward, and then digitally creating that shadow effect and moving things around and choosing which parts of the bodies, like Cave Carson's eye. His eye is a big deal. So in that little broken mirror section, you can see how that eye is bigger. And, you know, concentrating on that weird creature that's kind of based on a tardigrade, which are, you know, really cool looking things. And then Nick did a lot of production on it. You can see what a colorist brings to the plate, like not just for the coloring wise, but production wise. To be able to make that glass not disappear into the line work of the art, that takes skill. And that's all Nick. Nick makes me look better every single time.
No, I was going to comment on the same thing. I thought the coloring on the cover was unique because, you know, it's almost like your line work goes away because he's changed the blacks to a tone, you know, color, and it makes the cover really unique. But to see the original is, I don't know. I love black and white, right? At the end of the day,
Sure.
You know, I prefer that image, but I like the fact and the contributions that the colorist made in that cover to make it as it is, you know, as the printed image turned out. So that's it's absolutely beautiful, and it is sold too, just so you know.
Wow, that's awesome! Thank you guys so much. Wow, look at that. Cave's got a home. He finally made it.
Yes, congratulations to the buyer on that. Oh, you got a Hellboy mug. Darn it.
Oh yeah, I have 2 Hellboy mugs.
I've got to get one of those in
The
my
chipped one is
add it to
mine.
my
The
collection.
non-chipped
I've got a Thor hammer mug and a Venom mug, but I don't have one of those.
That's funny. I'm superstitious, so every morning, like, our coffee mugs have to match, or somewhere in my head I think we're going to argue. So, like, it's all it's weird where my neurosis will work out and where it doesn't.
Well, as long as you're also consistent with getting them cleaned, so you can use they're both ready for the next morning that you need them.
That's right.
Then you're in good shape. All right, well, let's move over to lot number 7. And again, this is Cave Carson piece. This is $1,200 on 11 by 17 with Superman.
Yeah. Is this the cover or the inside?
I might have mislabeled that. When I was looking online, I thought that.
No, this is the cover. Okay, this is the cover.
I thought I saw it as one of the covers. Yeah.
This is the cover. We did one of those kind of Silver Age things where the cover is also a panel on the inside. So that's kind of what I was mixing up in my head. But yeah, this is the cover of Superman shows up in Cave Carson. This issue was so fun and so hard. This was the issue where I was with my uncle when he was passing. So I was at the hospital and then working at night on this stuff at the same time. And DC was awesome. Let me say, like, during that time period, they were sending me like baskets. They were like, you need extensions on your time. They were awesome. So there's a bit of that meaning behind it, but it was also really cool that this was just Superman. I've gotten to draw Superman only a handful of other times. And it was really special and just a great issue because it was largely hallucinogenic because of the state of the book. So on the inside of the book, there's a scene where Superman has like alien tentacles that come out of his mouth and swallow Cave Carson. And I actually drew Cave naked while he goes through Superman's digestive system. And it looked like that was going to get greenlit for a little bit. But they ended up, of course, like pixelating out his privates, which only made it funnier and more bizarre. So I feel like I was really blessed not only to get to draw Superman, to get to draw a hopeful character during like a really sad, hard time, but also probably the only artist to draw Superman's intestines in print.
That is a note of distinction on your biography, on your resume. And I was double checking too while I was off camera, and it seems like there was probably 2 covers for that book, I guess, and so maybe this was an alt cover or whatnot, but it was definitely used as a cover for that particular book.
Yeah, Cave Carson had a lot of great guest artists and alternate covers, so we were really lucky there. But drawing Superman is intimidating.
See, I not having ever been a illustrator for comics, to me that would be I don't know. Superman to me would be like one of the easier ones. I'd look at Spider-Man and be like, I'm going to get his webs wrong, or I'm going to get his eyes wrong. Superman's got this chiseled chin and everything like that, and it just seems like it'd be easier. But I mean, I'm sure when you're looking at it, it's like you're drawing an iconic character, and you got to get it right.
Yeah, it can get nerve-wracking. It's sort of what, like, the worst thing that happened is, like, if I had a Superman or Batman book with all the time in the world, I thrive off of a little bit of pressure and deadline stuff. And what happens is the few times I've had those chances to like really make it perfect, it's just stiff. It's stiff. It's overthought. It's weird. Sometimes your best opportunity to draw an intimate character like Superman is when you don't have time, because that's probably when you do your best work. For me, anyway.
And Michael's probably correcting me. That was the standard cover. The other one that I'm seeing was an alternative cover. So there you go. Thank you,
Michael Perlman. He's one of those super supporters, man. Now,
usually someone in the audience will correct us when I misspeak. So there you have it. But so that artwork is still available, and we'll show that later after we've gone through everything else. Awesome. So let's move over to lot number 8.
Dick Tracy.
Yeah, this is a really nice one.
This is one of my favorite things I've ever done, because it was difficult. Again, it's Dick Tracy. Just like there's a lot of baggage along there. Good baggage, but it's intimidating to be able to get to write and draw this character. was a big deal. And as we'll see, like I did this cover more than once trying to get it right. You know, the concept was really fun. The execution just needed to be perfect, you know, because again, this is Dick Tracy, and it needs to be Dick Tracy. It needs to look and feel like Dick Tracy. B, I'm known as a noir shadowy person, so I have to bring my A game to this stuff. I spend a lot of time in Dick Tracy. I'm not sure so much on this particular cover, but in Dick Tracy, there's a lot of me dropping line work out. That's where you'll see like an outline. You can tell there's an outline there, but it's not drawn. Like the negative space itself becomes the shape. So I actually spent a lot of time drawing Dick Tracy with whiteout, with like a whiteout layer, just taking lines out. And this is just one of the most fun I've ever had. Brian Bendis and I have been trying to do Dick Tracy together since the early 2000s. And we actually had an opportunity at one point to do Dick Tracy. But the rights got snagged up by Warren Beatty, who still wanted to do some Dick Tracy stuff. So he like filmed this like really bizarre short film of him running around as Dick Tracy and then being interviewed as Dick Tracy. It was really interesting and fun, but weird to think that that's the thing that kept us from being able to team up. My only regret was it was really fun to write and draw Dick Tracy, but I really wanted to do it with Brian, and hopefully we could still do that at some point. The other fun thing was just drawing the logo.
I was going to ask you that was hand drawn, and I should let everybody know that artwork was claimed too. But so you did do the logo all by, you know, all hand drawn, everything on that.
Wow. Yeah, and I just traced that head, you know, just took what's his name's. I'm so bad, I can't believe
Chester Gould.
Thank you. It's so embarrassing. That's my brain all the time. But you know, he was known for like he can almost just draw the profile.
Right.
But it's kind of clearly it's all you needed. And you know, every now and then there's a reason to trace over another artist. And when that happens, it's really, really fun. You know, it's like just try and be Chester Gould for that face, you know, try to capture that moment and stuff.
No, well, I mean, your art style was certainly suited for, you know, that character, and I'm sure you were.
For the record, I'll draw Dick Tracy anytime, anywhere. I'm happy. I'll do more. I'll draw Dick anytime.
Well, we go to draw intestines anytime you're asked. So
yeah.
All right. Well, so let me check that one off.
Thank you for picking that up.
Yeah, congratulations to the buyer on that one. That one's a fantastic cover, and we've got a couple more here. Now the next one is the prelim to that piece, and we wanted to show that after we showed the original, just because it is a little different. And let me get that image on the screen here. This is lot number 9.
Yeah, so you can see it was this was the very first attempt, and I mean you can see there's like a stiffness the way he's throwing it. I think I had everything else relatively down, but you know, you know, it just needs more energy. It needs more energy. It's Dick Tracy. You can't be that sort of passive on the cover. And you can see minor differences in his build and face. It's also because I don't tend to do warm-up sketches. I don't tend to do too many designs. A lot of it happens on the page. It's a friend of mine, and Dick Darrington was saying, I'm all gas and no brakes. And mostly that serves me really, really well. It really does. But there's other times it'll bite me in the ass, you know, and this is one of those times. I wouldn't say it bit me in the ass in a bad way, you know, because I learned how to improve on the drawing. But I think if I did 3 or 4 pages of sketches of Dick Tracy first, I would have nailed it immediately. But I'm all about just actually drawing and moving forward. I admire guys like Chris Amney and Nick Darrington specifically. When he gets ready for a project, he fills sketchbooks up, before he even starts it. His sketchbook work is so brilliant. It's pretty mind blowing. But being friends with somebody like Nick, like I think we can bounce off each other. Nick can get a little bit more less thinky, you know, maybe, and I can get more thinky, maybe. Like the two of us together, you know, being in the same area, we talk about art, how to improve stuff, and this is a good example of sometimes, you know, something just isn't really there, and you know, start over. Sometimes you just start over. Don't try and fix little things, little tweaks. Just start over.
Right. I'm going to do the last image too, just as comparison, because I see what you're saying. I didn't really see it when I first was putting the slides together, but I get it now that, his hand gesture is a little different.
Yeah,
And yeah, even his posture is just subtly different. But I mean,
a little bit.
it makes, I get it. And so back on that piece though, you reached a point where you're like, I'm not even going to draw what's out the window. You knew it. You knew you had to stop right there and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was a piece too that I knew was important, and I knew that it would be an important piece to sell as well. So that's why I really started from scratch. I didn't want to like tweak it. I wanted it to be, for as work efficient as I sound, I still have artistic integrity about caring about things. I think I have a good balance between move forward, get it done, meet your deadlines, and artistic integrity of like, oh, this is a special piece, let it be special, take the extra time, redraw it. So who cares if it's going to take, if I lost a day, it doesn't matter, this is important, redo it.
Well, lot number 9 has sold too. So have you ever thrown artwork out rather than save it because it might be something a collector would want to purchase sometime?
No, I've never thrown, even like my sketches, like these things you saw in the sketchbook earlier. Yeah. I keep all of it. I have a closet full of literally, like, I think that's why this is kind of special. Like, I just don't sell. I have a website where I'll sell stuff, but there's not a lot of turnover because we're just busy. I really don't do conventions. So it's just pile, like, if I could show you, it's unbelievable how much work I have. Going forward, there's just going to be less of it just because of, working digitally.
Sure.
And I forget what my original point was. I'm sorry.
Well, just that you don't throw anything out. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. I think that's well, as a person who appreciates comic art, I'm glad that you don't.
I do feel like I want to take some of my earliest stuff, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I want to burn it, and I want to burn it because, like, you're talking about like stuff from like teenage years and things, right? Like, I have everything I've ever drawn, and I'm like, well, I don't see there being a real value in it, and I don't want it thrown away. It would feel better to say goodbye to it in some sort of weird ceremonial way than to have somebody selling a long shot drawing that I drew when I was 13 for a lot of money to somebody for some reason somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, there's no connection. Yeah. At least here, like, the people who I don't see buying the art, I'm saying thank you, and I'm giving you the story, right? So some of it, some rare stuff, I won't throw away, but I'll still find like a ceremonial way to say thank you, goodbye.
At some point, your closet's going to need another, an addition or something. So you're right. You may have to burn things at some point, but that would probably be the proper way to get rid of it if you were really, really wanting to do that.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to lot number 10, and the cover to Dick Tracy number 2.
Yeah. The first issue of Dick Tracy means more to me. This might be my favorite. All right, I won't lie. Like, all 4 of the covers that I got to do for Dick Tracy are things that I truly, truly love. And I say that because I don't love everything I do. Some of it, I'm like, all right, this is solid. Like I'm proud of what I did here. It's solid. There are a few things that I really love. There are a few things I'm really, really proud of. And the Dick Tracy covers, all of them are. So it's kind of hard to even talk or compare them to each other. The fun things here, that pose on Dick Tracy, when I figured out that pose, I was so excited. I don't remember if I saw it in a photo. I don't remember if I had sketched it out. Like, the idea of his arm being in front of him like that, and then almost completely blacking it out. So it's almost a silhouette that the light is coming out from his watch. And it's only the light from his watch that's lighting his face and the middle of his chest. I was just super, super excited. I love that figure so much. Drawing Prune Face is always a win. I mean, it's just one of the best faces you can draw in comics. And this third character is actually a character you might all know, is David Walker, our friend. He's one of my best friends, lives here in the Portland area. And, I drew him in as his character named Bricks Walker. He has these huge fists that are like bricks, and he can just punch the crap out of anything. So he was kind of being like this opposite side of a coin for Dick Tracy. So he's a private detective instead of being a police detective. And it's fun drawing my partner on there. And I just really had a lot of fun with this cover. The light sources from the watch, the light source from the machine gun firing, those old-fashioned stacked cake buildings.
Did
A lot of
you
fun.
base his face on my face?
Yes, I based Prune Face on my wife Taki. And that was great. She held a
I don't believe
machine
that.
gun. Before she puts the makeup on in the morning. Actually, that's me now. The Taki she's over here cracking jokes. She has a great sense of humor.
I don't. I'm angry.
Yeah, those Tommy guns were really fun. Like, when do you get to draw a Tommy gun?
Right, almost never. But I agree. I thought that the pose on Dick Tracy in that one was pretty dang cool and just perfect. The posture, everything about that, the way that was drawn, and Prune Face is just too darn cool. Like you say, as a character to draw. Wow.
Yeah, those were all fun. Like, I wanted to use classic characters, introduce a few more, and do different time periods. So that what was fun about that was like the first issue was in the 30s, second issue was in the 50s, fourth issue is modern time, or third issue is modern times, and the fourth issue was in the future. So it's to play with all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, that artwork is still available, and we'll show it to you again once we're all done. But let's move on to lot number 11 now. Another Dick Tracy cover.
This is the very, very first Dick Tracy stuff I got to do, and this was for Mike Allred's series, Dead or Alive. I can't name all of the characters because there are so many here. There's the obvious ones. There's Prune Face and Flat Top, Baby Face, and then the other ones I off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Somebody's gonna know.
I can remember Chester Gold's name. I'm not gonna remember the guy, No Face's name. But it was a really fun concept. The idea, I wanted to play on the idea, of course, being like the comic strip stuff and rolling out the page like that, and having the page, the comic book page, be part of the layout, so that the panels are literally panels, and they're also squares that the bad guys come out of. And this was my first attempt at drawing Dick Tracy for a cover, and I'm pretty happy with it. Little, I wish I fit the hat slightly differently on him. This is the problem. This is why I don't look backwards at stuff. I start looking at other things that I would do slightly different. But slightly different is probably something that only I'm seeing. Makes it weird. And again, I drew the logo and the Chester Gold face at the top. It's all on the original art. Drawn all in brush with a minimum use of pen.
Well, it's beautiful. I was going to confirm that. So why didn't you draw the cover or the logo on the prior Dick Tracy cover? It wasn't needed, or as far as the workflow, it wasn't something you had time to do.
I probably just forgot. Yeah, that's
because it's such a great job, you know what I mean, and it's fun because most original art, when you get it, if you're buying a cover, you don't get the logo drawn on it, and that's what makes this cover and the first cover really unique, because it's actually a hand-drawn logo on a cover. I mean, very rarely for a title page do you see a logo or whatever the title of the story is show up, as a hand-drawn piece of art. It just today almost never. So I think that makes these pieces really, really cool.
It was super fun. It was just super fun to be able to draw the logo on there, and it helps that it looked hand-drawn originally. Like, it didn't look like something you couldn't reproduce. And then they actually used it for the cover. I believe they actually my drawing is the logo for that.
Well, very, very cool. I mean, I would assume that they would almost want to do that, right? I mean, take what you did on issue 1 and then just put it on issue 2, even though you didn't draw it there. Yeah. All right. Well, that one's still available too, surprisingly. But we'll see that again at the end of the show. So let's move over to lot number 12 now. Something a little different, a Midnighter special cover. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a job that kind of came out of nowhere. I had to help out another artist whose deadline kind of got blown, and that job led into this job. And drawing Midnighter is something I never saw coming. It's one of those things. In my career, I track characters that I want to draw. I'll track characters that make sense if I was asked to draw. And drawing these guys was really exciting because it just wasn't on my radar. I'd forgotten even the sort of origins, that they weren't part of DC originally. It was a part of a whole other line and stuff. And getting into that history and learning about the characters was a lot of fun. And then this particular storyline was just insane. This Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, and it's part of the Future State big event storyline in DC. And got to draw all kinds of crazy stuff in this issue. There was Midnighter as an old person, Midnighter as a baby, and got to draw Apollo as like a robot, and them as humans, and like weird robot characters, and all kinds of cybernetic stuff. And Itaki was coloring the whole thing, so it was great working in the same room with your colorist. And Taki and I haven't done too much like Marvel DC mainstream work together, so that was a lot of fun, and I'm super proud of the whole thing. And they collected all of the backup stories and stuff into they're going to collect this annual with those backup stories that were in the back of Superman or Action Comics, and eventually that'll all be put together into one trade. And this I knew was a piece that people would want, so I made sure to make that this was going to be all digital, other than that, or all analog, other than the digital background and the border that you could see that was all done digitally.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted everybody to know that lot number 11, the prior Dick Tracy cover, did just get claimed as well. So congratulations on that one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, this is I really like this cover too. So it was but I wasn't aware that you worked on it with Taki, so that makes it more special, right?
Yeah, that, and stylistically, this was different because it was a mainstream book and I was following in somebody else's steps. I wanted to get my style as close to theirs as possible. So that meant just a lot more lines. If you look at the rendering here, this is very different than what I typically do. Even when I do render work, I usually keep it these shorter brushstrokes around the edges of things. But this was much more expressive, much more stylistically. Kind of harkens back to my early days when I was very influenced by like Brian Stelfreeze, and I wanted to do these long, sharp lines on everything. So it was really fun to go back to that sort of Stelfreeze, Michael Golden sort of influence, and just do a lot of little line work on stuff. It was challenging and fun, but it's different than most of my other stuff.
Well, it came out fantastic, and I'm a big Authority fan, so it was nice to see that. Yeah,
it's funny. Like I don't know why I drew Midnighter not with a mohawk but with his short hair. I think when I was collecting reference, one photo I saw just had him with short hair. Mm-hmm. And being like a 50-year-old dude, I'm almost 50 anyway, I was like, why would he have a mohawk? And that's the only thing I kept getting dinged on, was like hardcore fans was like, what did you do to his hair? And I was like, oh man, I'm sorry if I knew that was more of a thing. I would have done it, so that was fun.
Well, technically I have a mohawk. I'm over 50, but I shave the sides, and if I were to do something. Yeah, I could. But if I didn't shave the sides, it would be out to here. I would look like a cartoon character myself. So I have to shave the sides.
Well, whatever you shave, you could save to me, and maybe I could like start.
Well, I'm starting to thin there myself now too. But yeah, we're not going to go there. But all right, so lot number 12 is still available. Lot number 11 did sell, like I mentioned. So we'll circle back to this one if it hasn't sold by the end of the show. So let's move over to lot number 13.
Oh yeah, this is the cover for United States of Murder Inc. Again, Taki, this was all in the family. This is Brian and I, our creation. Taki coloring it. Taki's coloring came out of nowhere because this was a project when we started it. We considered black and white. Because of the nature of it being a noir story. That the concept is, what if the mafia never took down, or the FBI never really took down the mafia during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in this story, basically the mafia becomes its own huge economic force, and it basically takes over the East Coast. So yeah, we went to this heavy noir stuff. We were thinking black and white. When we were thinking color, we were going this broad sort of what's his name? Steranko, kind of a Steranko coloring
Oh,
with
sure.
these solid shapes and stuff. And I tried some stuff and I was like, I could do this, but time-wise, I don't know. Taki had never colored anything before, and she just rolled up her socks and jumped in and
My socks.
yeah, I don't know. She rolled up her socks and jumped in. I'm just making up metaphors and sayings. And became this amazing colorist that she never saw coming out of it. So it was hugely, hugely rewarding and personal, the whole project. And this is our cover for the first trade paperback, the first collection, using the gun motif. Just had a lot of fun with the composition. I think I thought about the composition before before I executed it. One of the things I was thinking of was, it's kind of cliche now, but you kind of have to do it when you're in an alternate world and it takes place in New York. The Twin Towers are still up. So there's a lot of that sort of like twin imagery going on. And that's why I wanted to play it off between the two characters and their guns kind of being like the towers. And I love drawing cityscapes. I really, really do. Whether I'm using a model that I'm building off of, and I think that that's what this was. This is probably partially a Google SketchUp model. And I think at the very top, next to where Brian signed it, Brian did sign this piece, you can see the sort of ghost imagery of the Google SketchUp that I had underneath. And when I use that, I'm typically trying to use it like a circle template or like a square template or a ruler. It is meant to just be a foundation for the drawing. And it's just really fun drawing cityscape stuff. And then all the negative space on the bottom was also important. So it balances out that you've got all this like, fine detail at the top, fine for me anyway. Fine detail at the top, two characters in the middle silhouetted by the guns, and then the negative space. So it all the elements came together, and I was really happy with this cover. And the whole project, it's one of my favorite things. I mean, there's powers and there's this. For me, if I could just do like Powers and Murder Inc. for the rest of my life, I would be happy.
That's it. Well, it's a beautiful cover and signed by Bendis. I think it's the only piece of art we've got here that's signed by Bendis today.
Yeah, I should have asked him beforehand, but
He's only 20 minutes away.
Hey, why don't you call him and have him come over and we can take care of that. Let's see. So that one hasn't sold either. So again, we'll see that. And I know people like to take notes during the show, so you can claim it at any time before we get to the end of the show too. Just like
look, I'm happy to just be here and talk to you about art and talk to the people and answer their questions.
Well, every piece of art has a story. I mean, I think that's what's fun. I mean, a lot of the shows that we do, we're just showing the art and we're not talking a whole lot about it. But when we've got the creator of the artwork on the screen with us, we should be talking about
I'm having a lot of fun doing that. Yeah, it's not a thing I typically do, period, like to myself or other people, just talking about the art. So this is neat. I really enjoy it.
Well, as am I. Let's take a look at lot 14. This is the one I referenced earlier, where the bricks, the bricks are in the published piece, but they're not on the analog piece.
Yes. So there are. So first, this is the cover to my art book, which you could find, either on Amazon or you can. It's published at Dark Horse, so you can easily get it through them as well. The art book was something I'd been dreaming of for a long time. I was really happy to finally get to do it. And this piece here, obviously, I want the center on Powers, and all the poster pieces in the background are other creator-owned stuff that I've done. And yeah, you can see this is a nice marriage of digital and analog. I don't know why I chose not to draw the bricks in at the time. I might have been thinking about leaving it as negative space. And again, with digital, this is where the challenge comes in, is there's a restraint that you have to show. And I think having the bricks on there totally works, but there are some times where you'll add in extra stuff because it's easy. It actually detracts from the piece, but this I think is nicely balanced. And obviously I didn't want to really draw redrawing covers at that teeny tiny squares that I have on the wall would just be too hard, so we have like Takio is in there, Victories, Synergy, Wild Rover, Rapture, Mice Templar, Murder Inc., and Hammer the Gods. Those are all like creator-owned stuff that I've done over the years, and it was really fun to draw them on the same cover with Walker and Dina. And that brick pattern, is a pattern. So one of the tricks that I have to help me move forward is I have certain patterns of backgrounds, which includes several kinds of bricks, which this is a background that you might see in other books. I will typically use a digital thing that I drop in like that if I know it's being covered. So in this case, I knew like the logo was going to cover it, Walker and Dina, and the shadow was covering most of it. The poster pieces were going to cover it. So I didn't feel either I was leaving it open to myself to leave the wall open, or I just didn't feel it was important because time-wise, even for something I love, my own cover for my own art book, it still needs to get done in a certain period of time, and not drawing the bricks in would definitely make that go quicker. So those are some of the tricks that I'll use to keep things moving forward. But this is one of the, another piece that means a lot to me. It's the cover for my book. And yeah, then there we go. And it was all pen and brush.
Well, it's beautiful, and I will definitely link to Amazon if you want after the show's over, so we can let people pick that up as well.
Great, thanks.
No
Yeah, one of the
problem.
problems of having a lot of creator-owned stuff is like it's hard to plug things because they're evergreen. So like my art book, I should always plug, but I should also always plug Powers. I should also always plug my sampler. So sometimes it's hard to So I'm glad to have a link in there just to remind people. Oh yeah.
Well, I actually hadn't seen that before, and I looked it up because I was curious if it was still available. But yeah, I didn't know it was out there either. And that's, I don't know, I'm a workaholic, and I don't always I don't pay attention to everything all artists are putting out there.
It's so easy to miss stuff. There's so much great stuff out there. It's super easy to miss things.
Well, okay. Well, that cover is still available, just so everybody knows. And let's take a look at lot number 15 now.
Walker and Dina cover for Powers. This was for one of the big paperback definitive collections, not the hardback, but a paperback. Actually, if Perlman's listening, he would know if it's both or just one or the other. This was there was a short time period where Walker and Dina switched over to work as federal agents, and that's what's reflected on the cover here. So I like this cover because I don't do a lot of concept covers, and this felt more of a concept cover for me. Them on top of this giant badge, aiming their guns at a bunch of heroes or villains flying away, and we're just having the shadows cast on them. And again, this is another case of Filardi taking what I think is some good, solid drawings and elevating it in his colors, even though he goes for like, there's not a lot of rendering on the cover, there's not a lot of special effects, but Nick knows how to guide the eye, he knows how to make things pop, and I'm always grateful to have him and to get to work with him. And again, this is largely brushes. This is mostly brush. I think the only pen on here is probably on the badge.
Oh, well, that makes sense. And hey, I can let you know that this cover has sold. Wow. So I don't know if there were multiple emails sent or not, but the person who will get this piece will have been replied to by Matthias. So if that's happened, then you got it. If not, there are a few other covers that are coming up. But yeah, that really is an amazing piece. And that's when I was trying to figure out like what images I wanted to promote prior to the show. I mean, that was like the one that I thought was like, it's just so strong. It's dynamic. Like you were saying, it's very, it was very well thought out. And I just love the flow and where my eye was kind of led to, and the characters popped out. And I love the colored version of it too. It's just very, very distinct. And no, fantastic job.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And it's always funny. I'm not a good judge of what people like about my work, to be honest. Like I never can tell, what kind of cover composition or a concept do people like or want. Sometimes I'm surprised at how simple the things are really strike at people. And then sometimes it's the concept that grabs people. And I'm just such a bad judge of myself. I'm way easier at figuring out what works for other artists than what works for myself. So hearing that means a lot. Thank you.
No, I get it too. Well, and it's work at the end of the day. I mean, you're trying to create works of art at the same time, but it's probably hard to kind of like step back. You're doing what feels right, and that's just part of the job, and you've got a deadline to get it done. So you like you said, and then you're moving on to the next job. But I as collectors and people who look at artwork all the time, I mean, everybody probably has their preferences and things. But yeah, I love that. I love just the way the dynamic of to me that was like a shaft of light pulling down on it, even though it wasn't light, it was shadows, right? I mean, but that's what I loved about it, and the badge was just extra.
Thanks, man.
No problem. Let's. Oh, and
Carmen said it was both trade paperback and hardcover cover.
Okay, so it was for
Oh, so
both
it's-
the floppy paperback cover and the hardcover.
So it appears it's been published twice.
Yeah,
And there were
Thank you, Mike.
and it got texted that 5 people wanted that one. So that was
Wow,
a very desirable piece. So I
wow.
have good taste. Hey, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael
You
Perman.
do great work. All right. Well, let's take a look at lot 16 next. Another Powers cover.
Yeah, this I gotta tell you, this, yeah, thanks. I can only take credit for it so much because this is largely influenced by David Mack's covers for Powers.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing these, like, my favorite alternate covers for Powers. We haven't had a lot of them, but David did these pieces of superheroes kind of in the shape of, like, bathroom shaped people, or the iconology you get on, like, bathroom store walks or crosswalks and stuff.
Oh yeah.
The circular head, tubular body thing, and he did those shapes just falling out of the sky with capes on them, and it was just so strong, so simple, and that influenced the thinking of this. Like, I was thinking about those body shapes falling, but in our case, our iconology is the body outline for crime scenes. So so that was the main influence on that. The second influence is there's this artist named Robert McKee is the
writer.
Is the writer. Who am I thinking about?
I don't know.
Robert McGinnis. So Robert McGinnis is a painter who uses a lot of framing devices where there's a body within a body, an outline of a body, and a person inside of it. So that was the sort of secondary influence here.
Somebody mentioned Steranko influence.
I think Steranko is along those same sort of thought process, that same generation. And Steranko, I never realized was an influence on me, but I think he is, more so in my later years. And I'm not sure how much of that is conscious, or he's such a force in comics. He leaves a wake behind him creatively. So you can be influenced by him without ever even really knowing it. So I think that's happened to me, was just his presence in comics has made an impact on me without even consciously realizing it. And you could definitely see that in here. You can see that in that Cave Carson cover with a wild dog on it. And again, Nick Filardi picking the right colors out. Because if you look at my piece on the far right, I've got these huge chunks of black that help you see Walker and Dina. But the details of the rest of it kind of lead into each other. And that's why you need a colorist like Nick Filardi or Taki to come in, and he's using the right colors to make everything pop. And that's what makes a piece come together, and it makes all the pieces together more valuable than any one piece. This wouldn't be as good as it is without Nick.
Right. No, it's always a collaboration. And I should let everybody know that this has sold, and also lot 13, the United States of Murder #1 cover for the trade paperback, is also sold.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, and this was another piece I was happy with, and I think it was just because I challenged myself to think a little bit. I typically think in terms of composition, not in concept. And that's what I admire about guys like Sam Nee, is they have concepts behind their drawings, not just compositions. And every now and then I'll challenge myself to do it. I just wish it was more natural. If it always feels like I'm trying really hard.
Now, on that one, did you give direction on the color choices, to the colors, or you just kind of let it?
Yeah, with Nick and Taki, I just don't. And it's got to be funny when editors get colors from Taki and they'll see my first response. It's like, oh wow, that's amazing. They got to think I'm bullshitting. Like, I've seen the pages. I don't actually see any of it until the editors do, even though she's just working on the other side of the room. Mm-hmm. That's about trust. I'm working with colorists who know what they're doing, who know how to make it more than what I would want. At most, I'll put like little tiny. Sometimes I'll make a shadow suggestion, and then I'll just do that in gray, and I'll say maybe really darken in the foreground, or here's a tree and here's the shapes for the tree leaves. But generally, it's the colorists that I work with. I'm lucky; they know what they're doing, and I'm never worried.
That's great. I mean, it's to not worry, to not feel concerned, because they're going to do a great job. But it's got to be a lot of fun, because for you, it's like that. When you get to see the final colored piece, I mean, that's just like the finished product must be so rewarding just to see that, because you're starting the foundation, they get to finish it. their choice of how they're going to handle the dialogue and the word balloons and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I love that whole, your peanut butter and my chocolate mixing and make something
Right,
better.
right, exactly, exactly. Well, that's what. Yeah, yeah. See, I love the creative process. So, I mean, I went to school. I wanted to be an artist, and in comics wasn't good enough, or at least I didn't think I was good enough when I was done, and that's why I kind of gravitated to doing website design and those sorts of things. But so I'm always envious of that. But I love the collaboration part. That's part of why, like, the work I do today. It involves a lot of people. I involve my family in most of my projects that I do in one way or another. My wife is my lead programmer, so it keeps it fun and and work. You got a cat. You've got a we have a guest, another collaborator in your project. All right. Well, let's take a look at lot number 17 next. Wow.
Yeah, this gets back to Powers the Bureau. I had this idea of Walker on a slanted rooftop. I kind of wish I made the tiles bigger, on the roof. See, this is why I don't look at my work afterwards. Like, I just immediately think, oh, the tiles should be bigger. Like that's the focus of this page for me, is the tiles aren't big enough. But another fun concept piece, you can see the far background here was a digital file. And again, I knew most of this was going to be covered, so it's just a far background. Like, I'm comfortable reusing art and backgrounds when I know it's largely being covered up. It's almost like fodder on the page. I hate to put it that way. And I could have also chose to go with an open background, with using this negative space. But I think with those panels going across from left to right, those little details, that negative space gets broken up in a way that doesn't work. So it needed something back there.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's my thought process behind it. There's also, like, I love those little panels on a cover. I love these little tiny beats. Being a big Mignola fan, I love his little cutaway panels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to do that sequentially. I can't use those in story-wise. Because I think it's a thing that only Mike knows how to do. B, anybody else who tries to do it, unlike some of the other things that you might be influenced by Mignola, like, that's just so him. It doesn't feel like your beat. It feels like somebody else's. But I always like, in film editing, little cutaways. Dune just did a great job of it, because every time they did this little artistic cutaway, that little artistic cutaway said something. So that's the attempt here, is these little tiny panels aren't supposed to be like a sequential story, but they're little cutaways to the story. So the cover itself is a story that doesn't even appear inside of the comic, but you get a sense that, Walker's been chasing somebody over these city rooftops, and these are the clues that he's either following or have been left behind. And again, Brian signed that piece, and with green, I'll have to ask him about that. Oh, I think you got muted.
Yeah, my mic got muted. Sorry about that. That piece did sell. I will let everybody know. And speaking of Mike Mignola, all right, there you go. I just picked this up. I got this in the mail the other day. So isn't that beautiful?
I come rob you.
And what other artists do you want to draw the corner of a room?
I know,
right?
I know.
That's what always drawing of a corner of a room, and it's fucking awesome.
I know, it really is. And I've always wanted something from Baltimore, and this piece came up, and I was like, that's it. That's the one I've been looking for. So I'm really, really happy, because I can't afford a Hellboy page.
Yeah, at Baltimore Comic-Con years ago, I got these two really big, tall pieces he did that were promotionals for Baltimore, and they hang on next to my fireplace on either side.
Oh, well, so you appreciate it as much as I do then.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, Baltimore was really cool. I collect a lot of illustration art. I mean, a lot of the work behind me isn't comic art related. It's more gaming related art, or just more illustration related. So when I see that, I just always wanted a good example, and I was happy to get that. But
he's a brilliant illustrator.
Oh yeah. Well, and congratulations to the person who picked up lot 17.
Oh yeah.
Good, very good taste. So let's see, we got 3 more pieces to look at. And next up is lot 18. Yeah, this is a nice one.
This is so fun. And this is, like, again, artistically, this is something I struggle with. I love how simple this cover is. I love how little rendering there is on Dina, both on her center character and on the left and right. I can't always tell. Like, I kind of let the material or the mood of the piece dictate how much rendering goes into something. Some of my work is much more rendered, like obviously that Midnighter stuff. Powers started out being very simple, much more simple than it is now. And this is one of those few pieces where I really kind of allowed myself to go back to like a very Tothy, Steve Rudy kind of very simple stuff. Other than the background is pretty detailed.
Right.
But I was super happy. Like I love her arms. Like there's just those curvy zigzags that express form and shape without being literal. You know, it's an expression of it. You know, it's
Right.
not what folds look like. It's an expression of folds. It's an expression of shadow and light. So that's the things that when I first look at this, I pat myself on the back to be brave enough to keep it simple, you know, because it's so easy to add more lines. And I know it's more palpable for some people. So
to me, I look at this and the level of detail is it's just right in the characters and then in the backgrounds. I think it works well together. I mean, you didn't need to do much with the effects coming off of her fingers, and I think that and in a weird way, you almost didn't even have to draw it, right? You could have let the colorist do it, but you chose to do it. And I think that really helps make the black and white piece be more eye catching and it's more you at the end of the day. I mean, I think it's a beautiful piece. And I should let everybody know too that this piece was claimed already.
Thanks, guys. You know, I was laughing though because one downside to working with somebody as amazing as Nick is you're right. Like the effects, like you look at that line, the effects from her hands, they're just these double outline things. I realize I've gotten bad at drawing the power type effects, you know, like a blast coming out of a gun or lightning around a hammer, because Nick does so much with me giving him so little. Like I was on the World of Krypton, which he's coloring, there's these, we're making it as alien as possible. And there are some effects where I'm like, this effect that I'm drawing sucks, because I'm just so used to be able to give Nick a little bit of shape and he just does anything to it. And then that's when I bust open my Walt Simonson or Art Adams and, you know, learn, oh, this is what a ray gun looks like when it explodes into a computer. And this is the weird shapes that come off of it.
Roman is saying this is for the trade paperback, not the hardcover.
Okay. Perman was saying this is for the trade paperback, not the hardcover. But it's still a cover.
There you go.
For the
we should have had Perlman on.
We're very thankful to have him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got two more pieces to check out here. This next one is lot number 19, and it's similar to the first lot. So I assume this was a warm-up piece for the day.
Yeah, this is another warm-up piece. Again, just kind of drew it out in the morning. I love the spirit. I was very lucky to get to draw and write, to write and draw a spirit story when it was at DC back in like 2008 or 2009. And I had a Kevin Nolan cover too, which was extra fun. So there's the spirit. I always love drawing the spirit. Want to draw him again sometime. Captain America, obviously, he's just fun. He's just fun to draw, even though he's challenging too. You know, like he's kind of like Spider-Man. He's got one of the best and kind of complicated costumes. Because again, if you don't hit it right, it just won't hit right. And Robin, whoever the identity is, whoever's playing Robin, I've always been drawn to like the sort of second in command of teams. You know, for me, it was always Spock, not Kirk. I like
the
Robin
sidekick
with Batman. You know,
sure.
Yeah. I guess because of my own low expectations for myself, you know, I admire the second person in command. And Robin was just super fun, especially from like the old television show. And there's a little bit of wash in here. I'm pretty sure I just drew this like quickly in the morning as one of those, you know, warm-up sketches, trying to do a daily sketch thing. But I just couldn't quite keep up with it. Yeah. And, you know, these characters are just fun. It's fun to just kind of draw a handful of characters on a page and let it be a sketch. Don't let it be perfect. But finish it, which is the thing a lot of artists should always do. Just finish everything you do, even if it's not working out.
No. Well, I can tell you that lot did sell too. So another one. Congratulations to whoever picked that one up. We appreciate it. So we have one more piece to look at before we go back and review what hasn't been sold, which isn't a whole lot. So that's good.
Thank you, everyone. Wow.
So this is lot number 20, and it's the cover to Star Wars Adventures number 23.
Oh, God, this was so fun. Taki helped me out on this cover. Like, I think like we were working out concepts, and I remember Taki being like, well, what about like we were doing like a buddy thing. She had this suggestion too for one of the other covers I did, which was it was Han and Luke leaning on each other. So it's just sort of a play off of this. And Taki was like, hey, what one of these kind of yeah, it seems very Lando, right? And then like his helmet was always one of the coolest things in all of Star Wars for me. And even though I didn't draw the teeth on the original piece, because it was I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with the space back there or not, and I also knew that I wanted to drop it, meaning like that sort of color hold. And actually, what I ended up doing here was redrawing it. Like I think it's redrawn digitally. So this was my original on the original piece. I ended up redoing the whole helmet. So you can kind of see the differences between the two.
Right, right.
Yeah. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was just struggling with the proportions. I was probably struggling with the proportions of it because if you look at it very closely, the composition here being, look at the top of Chewbacca's head, where that visor is coming in. It creates this V shape that brings your eye right into Chewie. And then your eye goes right from Chewie right to Lando. So it moves very very smoothly, whereas the original that I drew with the lid of his helmet overlapping Chewbacca's head like that, it kind of gets blocked there. It just doesn't move quite the same, especially when I knew that the teeth would be coming underneath and overlapping the skid thing in a weird way. Mm-hmm. So I knew as I was drawing it, shit, I need to adjust this later. So that's why I ended up doing most of that part digitally. But my favorite part is just Lando. Like he had just a fun face, and this is right after Dick Tracy, and I was getting a little more cartoony with my stuff and being more comfortable with that. And his face and hair and his finger, like just everything here is working for me. And the same with Chewie. Chewie is tough. If you don't draw Chewbacca right, he just doesn't look right. And this was a lot of fun. So so really, really happy with the way this came out.
It's a beautiful piece, and it has been claimed, everybody. Just want you to know that.
Thank you.
So going to a good home, I'm sure. And I like the choice. I mean, when I first saw it in the black and white version, I mean, it looks beautiful, but I understand, sort of, that top of that helmet, right? I don't need to know about the kind of the face guard that came around it. I know what that helmet is just from seeing the top of it. Like you said, it's such an iconic piece from Star Wars. But I like the way you decided to change that for the published piece, because it does give you a little bit more of a feel for the face guard and everything. So, but absolutely beautiful, and congratulations to the buyer and to you on another sale. Very good.
Thank you, buyer. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't announce names or anything. Just I think that might be like the thing some people are very used to when we do these shows, and they're claiming in the chat. It's real obvious who's got it. But in this process, because of the way we're emailing and everything, I'm just told that the lot's been sold. So that I don't know. I think it works just as well as in the chat. But I know it can be a little frustrating for people who are coming in second or third and then not getting a reply. That's why we always say if you don't hear back from Matthias, then you know that you didn't get it. But why don't we do the recap? Okay. To kind of look at things. It looks, I was just checking, he texted me to confirm, but yeah, I've got the same. There are only 5 pieces that haven't sold. Awesome. And we can go back and take a look at lot number 2, just to remind ourselves which one that was. This was from this was a Blue Book promo. Now, when you say promo, how is this used?
Right now I'm using it. So first it was a promo to the extent of like, I needed to get a feel of Blue Book. So this is literally the very first thing of Blue Book that I did. And to give you more of an idea behind it, so Substack started a program in order to get creators to be able to make anything that they want without the sort of typical concerns about distribution and pay and all these things. So this was just an exciting opportunity to create something unique. And this first storyline that we're doing for Blue Book is 80 pages. That we will go to print eventually. Right now it's all digital, but we want to concentrate on that platform first. So this was the first piece I did to get a feel of the project. Where you'll see it now is in one of those first promo pieces, which we're calling the bulletin pieces, which are sort of, they're inspired by Ripley's Believe It or Not, those old comic strips. Yeah. So one of those entries is about Blue Book and how Hynek was hired on board to be a debunker, but then became a believer. And that's currently up on the Substack, and it'll be in print at some point in the far-flung future.
Well, it's a very nice piece, and like we said, Toth influence certainly. So lot number 2 is still available, and let's take a look at. Let's see, lot number 7 is the next one. So let me pull that one up on the screen here. That was the Superman one. I was kind of surprised. I thought this one would go as well, but
Sure.
It's still available.
I think it's not sold because I didn't draw Cape Carson's checker pattern. It's like not having Batman's ears. His plaid shirt is everything. It's his plaid shirt and beard at this point.
Well, I mean, it's a very dynamic cover. I love it. You're right. I mean, I'll be honest. I felt like it was lacking in that because I've seen the published piece, right? So when I did my research to see if it was the cover or not, or a cover, that was the first thing that I noticed was, oh man, it's missing that. But that's what, at the end of the day, it's still a fantastic cover. It's got Superman on it. I mean, what more could you want out of something like that? And I just got a text too that lot number 2 did just sell.
Oh,
so
excellent.
Congratulations to the buyer on that one. So then, but yeah, no, I mean, this, I'm sure you won't be disappointed if this one stays in your portfolio or in your closet for a little longer, right?
Well, but with art, everything is it's timing.
Right.
Right time and right place under the right circumstances, and I'm happy to hold on to Superman for as long as I have to.
Exactly. And I saw somebody mentioned, I think Perlman mentioned in the chat too, that we do have that Comic Art Live show in a couple of weekends from now. And it's certainly something you could take advantage of. I'll talk with you guys after the show. It's the biggest virtual show on the internet as far as I'm concerned, even better than San Diego or New York Comic Con. It's the only one that you can really find art to buy, and sales actually happen. So yeah, we'll talk about that.
And I'm so blown away by this whole thing because like your website has been such a source for artists over the years to go to when you need to study somebody's art. Like you really want to look at some Kevin Nolan pages, go to your website.
Right.
You can see usually in pretty high resolution, good details, and you can learn stuff. So for me, like that was enough. Now you've built this other world outside of it, and it's amazing. And congratulations on what you built, man, because you just started as a fan, just making something you love.
Exactly. I built what I wanted at the end as a collector. I'm like, this is a tool that I wish was out there, so I'm just going to build it the way I want it, and hopefully everybody else thinks they want it too. But at least I knew that it was what I wanted as a collector, to be able to show off my collection. So thank you for that. And but yeah, we'll talk after the show. So let's take a look at let's see, we got 3 more pieces to look at. Next one is lot number 10, and let me get that one on the screen right here. That was the Dick Tracy number 2 cover.
Yeah, this is still, like I said, one of my favorite pieces.
With one of our best friends' face on it.
And Tiger's saying with one of our best friends' faces on it. You can buy this David Walker piece. You big David Walker fans out there. Pardon me. So fun. Again, I do wish I drew the logo on there. That would have been really cool. But I think I was just, once I figured out the actual piece, sometimes I get excited and I just dive right into it,
When I'm looking at this now, I really like the perspective. I mean, the building that's behind Tracy, is slanted, and the building behind that building is more vertical, and it kind of starts tipping the other way, and then having those ones to the left of your friend, being more pretty much straight up and down. It's just a really unique use of perspective to kind of move the viewer's eye around. I love it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, one in each section. Those 3 sections, basically the background behind Prune Face, the background behind to the bottom right of Dick Tracy, and the background on the bottom left behind Brick's character, to feel like a different part of the city, to each to have its own sort of like vibe, The idea of the cover is telling you there's going to be all these different locations, and it's going to be like a chase and all over the place.
I didn't look up the color version of this. So were the buildings all kind of colored distinctly different so that they stood out more, or was it more of a consistent palette?
I think on this, I colored it, and I took a page, a hint from Taki, which is basically the foreground characters were of one tone, and like the cities were probably all a similar tone in the back, even though they're different locations. I wanted the foreground to pop from the background, because like when you look at the black and white version, while it's still clear what's in the front and what's in the back, the coloring can like really push that and make it pop, as opposed to just be a foreground and background. When it pops, like there's no question that there's a foreground background. It just separates everything from the eye better.
Well, it's fantastic. I love the way it was designed. I love Bruneface, and so this piece is still out there. And if anybody's watching the show after the fact on the rerun, within the next 24 hours, any of these pieces that are left unclaimed, you can email the TalentTalk email address and claim it up until about the same time tomorrow. So let's see, we've got 2 more pieces to look at, and the next one is lot 12. This was the Midnighter cover, and this was $1,300. And we talked a lot. This is the one that Taki helped you with on the color on the. But see, that was the pattern. Was that something that you had suggested? That triangular pattern? That's
probably not. Like, because in the book we had so many pattern stuff going on. She just knew to run with it in that way. It's great when you work with somebody who. One of the reasons why communication is important isn't just to say, I want this background, or I want you to do this, and you want me to do that. It's not just an exchange of artistic points, but like you build a trust with each other and an understanding, so you can start communicating without communicating. So it's simply the fact that we had drawn all the interior stuff ahead of time. Taki knew to do something with that background. And it was up to her to choose whatever patterns. Actually, you're Taki's here right now. Did you have any thoughts on the cover?
Oh, I just think it's such a great design. I don't remember the pattern part though. Like if I added it or if you had it in there or suggested it or something, I don't remember.
And even if I did have it in there, it would have just been in black and white. And then it would have been her choice to either drop the line works so that it's like not like
it's a color hold.
Yeah, so it's a color hold. And the same thing with the Apollo symbol behind Midnighter. That glow effect is up to Taki.
Sure.
And again, you don't have to communicate these things at a certain point. Once you start communicating enough, it all flows very naturally. Like Brian and I, when we work on something, we talk about it a lot before we start it. Then we talk about it probably a lot during like the first cover or the first images. And then from there on, we almost never talk about it after that. We just make it.
Well, again, I love the process at the end of the day. The collaboration, and the thing is, like the trust side of things is what I really can appreciate. I mean, when you work with somebody who you don't have to second guess them, and you're just going to admire what they do as much as they probably are admiring the work that they're getting from you to color or to work with, is, I don't know.
Yeah,
I miss that.
The same thing going on your side of things.
We do in some to some degree. Like with Maureen, my wife, she is not she's not an art collector. Well, we have art that we share, of course, but when it comes to like working on CAF, I usually give her an outline of a new feature or something I want, and she's like, I don't want to know why your collectors want this. Just tell me how it's supposed to work. So it's that kind of a working relationship. So it is more like boss and employee, but I enjoy it because, again, I mean, how often do you get to work with your spouse on a project that that both supports you and it's something that you love? And so I enjoy it every day. In between things here, I was texting her about something I needed her to fix because somebody had texted me something. Hey, something's broken over here. So I said, hey, when you're back, why don't you do this for me? Yeah. So let's look at the last artwork that we have here, and this was lot 14, and they cover to your art book.
Yeah. This is again, like it's just another favorite piece. If I have to hold on to it forever, I'll be happy to. Walker and Dina, I can't escape them. Like we keep thinking, we keep talking about like Powers is over, it should be over, and then we're also privately like, I don't know. I want to draw them again. But we should move forward. No sideways moves, but I don't know. Let's go back to Walker and Dina. I really happy with the cover. Love this piece, and being part of my art book. I hope you guys check that out too. Go take a gander somewhere. There's a lot of unpublished stuff in there.
Yeah, well, definitely, like I mentioned, I will put a link in the show description at least over to Amazon to make it easy for people to pick this book up as well. And hey, I can actually tell you that lot 7 has sold. That was the Superman Cave Carson cover. And
awesome.
and I hate to tell you this, but lot 14 has just sold as well, the one that's on the screen.
Wow. Oh, now I changed my mind.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sure it's going to a very, very, very good home. I'm
Oh
really
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm excited for it to go someplace because, like, otherwise, no matter how much a piece is personal to me and stuff, like I don't display it. It lives in my closet with the other artwork and stuff, and a dark, humidified, controlled thing. So
right. No. It's got to be tough sometimes. And you look at Walt Simonson, who refuses to sell anything, right? I mean, your art is personal, and what you choose to do with it, whether you want to sell it or you want to hold on to it. I think that it's your decision. As collectors, sometimes we all feel like, well, wait a minute, they just drew that, I should be able to buy it. And I'm sure that that happens. I'm sure you probably get inquiries every once in a while, and you're like, well, you probably let them know, you're not interested in it. But I think it really does come down to the creator's decision on what pieces they want to keep, which ones are most important to them. And we as collectors just have to kind of go with the flow. And it really always comes back to, I would say this, whether I was a collector or have an artist or an art background like I do, but we're all patrons at the end of the day to those like yourself who have created the artwork. I mean, we wouldn't have a hobby if you weren't making this artwork. So the respect, has to, really starts there. And that's what doing these shows with you and, I did the Linsner show, and I've done a few other shows with artists. They're fun because I know that I'm helping you directly. And I know that this, that it's not going to an intermediary, art rep or that sort of thing. It's fun and very fulfilling. And it's the same reason why when I go to cons or any kind of an art show, I like to spread the money around with as many artists as I can, because I like to be a patron of the arts. And that's one aspect of the hobby that I do know a lot of collectors feel very strongly about, because we know that, we're supporting you and guaranteeing that, this hobby and the artwork will, go on forever, and I think it just makes it really, I don't know, for me, it adds a very personal part to the hobby that you just don't get from collecting comic books or statues or those sorts of things. You really get to engage with the creators, by and large. And I think
that respect goes both ways. Like, I really do think of these as homes to other people, because I know when I buy art from other artists, like, it is a home. It goes on my wall. It means something to me. I love it. Like, anybody who's bought something here, if you tag me on Instagram or Twitter is easier for me. I'll post like your framed piece and say who it's from and who got it and stuff. Like, I love seeing that, and I love sharing that with people.
Sure.
And you're right, that Patreon thing, like, you made me think about a specific art collector, John Higashi.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He literally was, and I don't think I thought of it as he was being a patron of my art, because he bought stuff because he liked it. But in retrospect, I know sometimes he was buying stuff because he knew I was starting out. You know what I mean? Like it was early Powers days. Like, he knew I wasn't there yet, and he wanted to make sure I had a good show and stuff. He buy stuff that I could tell he didn't need, because he bought like a big piece and then a bunch of little pieces and stuff, And you're right, there is that it's not just people buying the art because they want it themselves. Sometimes it is about that, actually supporting the creator and stuff. And hopefully you guys just get that respect back.
Right. And John's an incredible person. He's one of the first people I've probably interacted with in the hobby, just because he's always out there. He's got his bag full of books that he's getting signed, and he's always picking up artwork, and just an all-around great guy. And I always felt that too about him. He really was, is a patron of the arts in a major way, and definitely somebody who's always made the hobby fun for me as well, just to have been able to interact with him over the years. Right. So
how cool is when he shows up with that portfolio and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. How do you follow up one of his commissions from somebody else? And I actually got a message that lot number 12 is sold too. So the only piece of art that hasn't sold tonight, I might as well show it on the screen, because I'll just show it one last time, was the cover to Dick Tracy number 2. So and that was lot number 10. And I would want to remind everybody, I know that people who claimed artwork and were successful and got the reply from Matthias that you did get it, I know as part of his email letting you know that you got it, you do need to let him know what your mailing address is. So if you got the confirmation claim, please reply back to him so he can get your mailing information so that he can work on getting the invoices out to you this afternoon and kind of move the whole process along so that we can get the artwork to you. Usually, I would say we'll probably have it all shipped out and delivered within a 2-week period because, Mike, you've still got the artwork, so we just have to finalize, that the pieces get paid for. And then the artwork gets shipped to TalentTalk, and TalentTalk is the one who handles that, doing all the mailing, so that Mike can focus on his art and not focus on having to pack 20 pieces of art and ship them out. So that's kind of the process that we use here when we do these shows.
And thank you. That is a big reason why we don't sell more work or do it ourselves. So
sure.
Having you be able to do this it's thank you.
No, I really like the model. It makes a lot of sense. And I do, I think like I don't want, that's not something that I want you focused on, right? Having to worry about how to complete a sale or how to worry about,
Sure.
pack and ship and insurance. And I can actually tell you that lot 10 just sold. So everything is sold.
Wow.
That's very amazing. I'm thrilled. I don't get sellouts too often. So this is fantastic, Mike. I mean, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't thank you and everybody else more. This means a lot to us. It really does. Taki, I don't know how many people know this. Like, we work closely with the Heroes Initiative. We've done that all of our career. We never guessed we would have needed it. And they've come through for us. This sale is going to help all of that. Like, that stuff doesn't go away. It's something. Yeah, it's a chronic incurable disease right now. Multiple sclerosis. So this is going to help all of that. And thank you for this, and thank Heroes Initiative for helping us out on that initially. And thank you, Bill. Thank you for everybody who's listened to me babble on. And I hope you really enjoy the art when it shows up.
Yeah, well, me too. And it's my pleasure to. I've worked with the Hero Initiative since even before I started Comic Art Fan. So I've known Jim for a very, very long time, and he's a good friend of mine. And I've always been as supportive as I can and promote anything that any of the auctions that they've got going on to help them raise money. So it's a very big part of my life. I didn't build the site they have today, but I built their site for free when they really were trying to get themselves the presence out there when they were transforming from actor to Hero Initiative.
Right,
yeah. And so I was like, well, I'll do it for you. And and he did a favor for me. I got a nice Hellboy movie book that Guillermo del Toro had signed and did a sketch in it for me. I didn't ask for it. He just sent it to me. So, so I've had a very, great relationship with him. And I like those sorts of, deals and stuff. I'm not always, life isn't all about money and getting paid for everything. I mean, sometimes it's doing the right thing and then good things come back to you. So I'm sure you feel the same way.
Absolutely. Like, I left video games or comics to work in video games for a little bit for practical reasons. I kind of had to. But I was working that full-time job while making comics, and then ultimately I realized it didn't really fit in there and I just need to come back here. So it isn't about all money. It is really about the passion of, creating stuff and sharing things. As we're talking about, even as art collectors, you're a part of that, seeing what art can mean to people. Sometimes it blows me away because I think about it too much about, like, this is composition and ink and purpose, and then, these characters mean things to people, and to see it get into their hands, it's touching, it really is. Not to get corny and stuff, but like it's the best feeling in the world when you see somebody buy your art and it means something to them.
Right. No, well, I mean, I can't thank you enough for doing this today, Michael. This was a lot of fun. And, if you ever need anything that I can help you with in the future, please let me know. I mean, I think that,
sure.
These experiences have been a lot of fun for me. And again, we'll talk a little bit about Comic Art Live when we get in the green room after the show. But see, I'm a little choked up now too. But thank you so much. I mean, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we had a great audience today. It always makes it more fun to see people enjoying the art, even if they're not buying it. I mean, again, we're all fans of the medium, and we're fans of the creators, and that's just what makes this hobby so unique. And I appreciate everybody who tunes in and likes to hang out with creators and myself and enjoy good art any day of the week. So thank you, Taki, as well. I know you've been off camera the whole show, but I appreciate all your help as well. And again, everybody, thank you so much. Remember, please, if you did get emailed from Matthias and you picked up a piece of artwork today, reply back and get your mailing address over to him. and he'll get those invoices out right away. Please get them paid within 48 hours so we can get the artwork shipped to TalentTalk early next week, and we'll be able to turn all this around and get the artwork in your hands. And I hope it ends up on Comic Art Fans. It should. That's where all good art should end up, and that's what we want to see. So Michael, thanks again. Taki, I appreciate it so much. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.